What's up?
What is up, my friend?
How you doing?
I'm pretty good, actually. I'm having a good day.
Excellent.
How are
It's
you?
good to
How are
know.
things? Were you in California and Vegas still? Vegas, probably.
Back in Vegas, yeah, I was in California for like the first couple of weeks of the lockdown, and
Mhm.
then kind of decided to head back to Vegas and be at our home and everything.
Cool, man. Cool.
Yeah,
There's Mr.
just
Goff there.
Yo, yo. You guys hear me all right?
everyone. Yeah, like everyone's got their cool mics.
Oh, totally.
you know?
Yeah, I gotta. Yeah. This is my old podcasting mic when I used to do my Michael Fiore podcast.
Love it, man. A lot of stories. If that mic could talk.
Oh,
you
it's true. It's true. Yes, it could. Yeah. How's your quarantine going? Having a good time?
Mine's pretty good. I mean, I got the bougie complaint of not being able to golf anymore.
Don't you live on a golf course? Like, isn't that the thing?
Yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah,
they
I
won't
do.
even let you golf on the golf course in your backyard.
You know what the
What's up,
frustrating? What's up, Dan? The frustrating thing is like they're like you can't like don't even walk on it because like okay fine golfing no problem but it's like
Sure.
with my daughter like in the afternoons like taking her and she can walk down the golf course and there's like all the animals and it's like a huge park and they're like if you go on the golf course it's trespassing and like the government will like revoke our like food and beverage license and all this stuff if like they see people on the golf course at all even if you're just using it for like jogging or recreation. Like that's the part that really kind of pisses me off.
And yet in Florida, they have declared that WWE wrestling is essential, and they're allowed to record shows during this.
I mean, it's pretty essential.
No crowd though, right?
No crowd. They're doing it in the they have this thing called the Performance Center, which is like their training area. So I actually looked at some of it, and I watched a little bit of the WrestleMania stuff the other day, and it's fucking weird because there's just like nobody in the crowd whatsoever. You can hear them all really loud. Yeah, it's fucking weird.
It is super weird.
I wonder if they had any idea like how much I'm sure they did. They understand that business inside and out, but like I bet your average person had no idea that like the fans contributed that much to a show.
Oh, it's everything. Yeah. It's everything for that kind of thing.
It's like taking the music out of a movie or something.
It is. Yeah. I think if you take out the fans, it's just like, it just looks kind of stupid at that point, right? Because you got these guys who are grunting a lot and going like this in the corner of the ring and there's like nobody cheering. It's like, why am I doing this alone? One guy said too, I saw an interview and he was like, it hurts a lot more when there's no crowd, right? When there's a crowd, you get your adrenaline going and it's like, yeah, whatever, you get thrown over your head or whatever. There's no crowd. You're just like, this just fucking sucks. Jeez.
It's got to be so weird too, because like wrestling's so built on like the good guy and the heel, and there's nobody like booing the heel. Like,
Nope. Nothing whatsoever. Yeah. Classic good versus evil, all that fun shit. But
It's actually making me really want to watch some wrestling with nobody.
you should.
Watch.
There's some good wrestling. I still watch wrestling sometimes. I like good wrestling. And there's a lot of bad wrestling, but if you find the good stuff, it's really cool.
Yeah,
It's all storytelling, It's all like massive, like, broad stroke kind of storytelling. There's copywriting lessons in there somewhere.
Have you ever been, when I was in Pensacola, Florida, I would like find local things to do, especially when I was like dating, like, but kind of young and in college and broke. And so you find like they had like amateur wrestling. So like the minor leagues of wrestling.
Oh,
and
sure,
I'd go
yeah.
like to that, which would be really interesting because then you've got people who just are like, some of them are kind of good actually. And some of them are really bad and they're like actually hurting themselves because they don't know what they're doing. And
Yeah, that's a big thing. Yeah.
it was pretty interesting.
Or the people that are just like really out of shape, but they're wearing the tight outfits and shit and trying to do their gimmick. And it's like, you're a 40-year-old fat dude from Minnesota. Okay, cool. But
You definitely got that.
okay.
So yeah, I'm thinking with this call, like obviously I'm recording it and I'm going to put it on like YouTube after and
Sure.
we can kind of share it with people. And then maybe in, a few weeks after, whenever we can figure something out and do like a more interactive one with an audience. But, for this one, I just figured like, I just genuinely like you guys, and
Thanks, dude.
Yeah. So, I don't know. We're feeling like the more,
The feeling is mutual.
well, thank you.
I secretly hate him, but I decided.
Yeah, Chris just puts up with me, I guess. We're four of the better kind of known copywriters out there for our generation. And the fact that we kind of actually like each other and have a lot of cool stuff going on, I figured, doing calls and talking, and I think people would get value from it. And mostly I figured we could just have a pretty free-flowing conversation. I have like 4 sort of questions if it gets really awkward and somehow
Cool.
4 copywriters run out of, things to talk about, which seems unlikely, especially with Chris on this call. But maybe it would help though, just because it is going to be recorded, if each of us kind of did a quick little 10-second who we are and like, a background thing, if you guys are comfortable doing that.
Sure.
It doesn't have to be too crazy.
Why don't you start it off since you're kind of running things? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm running like a boss.
Yeah.
My name is Stefan Georgi. I am a direct response copywriter and entrepreneur. I've been writing since 2012. The number I use is like I've sold like over $700 million worth of client products and my own products, which is actually accurate, maybe more. It's hard to get an actual number like Chris and I have talked about. Yeah. On top of that, I run some different businesses, including Copy Accelerator with Justin Goff, which is a copywriting and really offer scaling kind of training and mentorship mastermind. And I live in Las Vegas and I'm here locked down with my family.
Lockdown. I'll go next. Why not?
Yeah.
So I'm Chris, Mr. Moneyfingers Haddad. That's my old nickname that Joe Barton gave me. I'm a copywriter, and then mostly for the last decade or so, I've been focusing on my own business and the relationship advice niche. I'm actually working on some health-related stuff right now. Stefan, to what you said, I have no idea how much my copy is sold. I mean, I wrote that Pimsleur approach letter, which did some insane amount of money, and then all the
9 figures for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and then all the other various ones. And I'm in Seattle, locked down with my wife and our tiny little dog, and feeling really badly for my friends who are alone, and even more badly for my friends who are waiters and work in the service industry or have brick and mortar businesses and are drowning right now and have no idea how they're going to get through this. I feel incredibly lucky that our business hasn't been really affected yet. Justin.
I'll go. So Justin Goff, partners with Stefan on Copy Accelerator. I've written a ton of copy, grew a direct response supplement company to $23 million in sales. Mostly now, though, just focus on funnels and more funnel strategy and scaling offers than specifically on kind of front-end copy like I used to. I'm a lot better at actually the strategy aspect and the upsells and kind of scaling offers than the nitty-gritty of the front-end copy.
All right, my turn.
Yeah,
your turn.
My name is Dan Ferrari. I think I've been in this pretty much the exact same time as Stefan. You said 2012. That's kind of when I got my start, was late 2012. Most of my writing has been kind of for some of the bigger publishers. I was in-house at the Motley Fool at the beginning of my career, and then left that, started an agency where we had a bunch of big contracts with Aurora Financial. And since then have written pretty much all over the place: financial, health, supplements, info, products on BizOp type money-making stuff. Pretty versatile in that regard, and I live here in Hawaii.
There are worse places to be locked down than Hawaii. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. We dodged the bullet in terms of a lot of kind of the cases that we have. We get like 2 cases a day the last few days, and I can still surf. And
yeah, I'm in Seattle, so we're like a couple of weeks ahead of everybody else. So it's kind of interesting, just like see, we were like locked down about a week and a half, 2 weeks before anybody else started to be. And it was interesting, like looking on the internet and seeing all the people saying it's a hoax, it's a hoax, it's a hoax, it's a hoax. And like a week later, they're like, it's still a hoax, but I'm being forced to stay home. I'm hoping that
Venkatesh Rao is.
What's that? Sorry?
Do you know who Venkatesh Rao is?
I do not know.
He's this guy, I don't really know how you describe him. He's like a thinker or philosopher, kind of like a Taleb type. And he wrote this really interesting thing called COVID time, where for the first time in human history, you're basically having this experience where everyone is experiencing the same thing, but on different timelines. And so there's almost quite literally like this future and past dynamic going on between people, and even people in like the same geography or the same building might be having a completely different timeline because somebody they know is sick already, or they were sick and now they're better and they're like, I just need to get out, while the person next to them is scared, you know?
Yeah. Well, meanwhile, you also have a large portion of the country who's still in total denial, right? Like there was a news item the other day about this pastor who a week and a half ago was like, Jesus will protect us from COVID. Come to the church, come to the church. He died like 3 days ago, right? Like, it's like, I'm like, sorry, your denial, your denialism and your religion doesn't really affect science or affect a freaking virus. But it's really, I mean, Stefan, you put out something the other day about conspiracy theories. and the impact on copy, or how you can use that for copywriting. And honestly, conspiracy theories just are copywriting, right? Like it's like we're looking for the common enemy. We're looking for this. We're looking for that. It's the exact same thing. I was going to post something the other day because I forget who it was. Somebody in marketing was like ranting and raving about this is a scam. This is whatever else. And I'm like, guys, the proof that you use in your sales letters is not actual proof. Right. In the real world, like we're all very good at taking things and having correlation, mean causation, and all this other kind of stuff to sell something. But in the real world, it's not actually true. Don't like market to yourself so much that you fall for it. What I find really interesting is that the only real conspiracy around COVID that I've seen so far is the conspiracy to convince people that COVID is caused by 5G or that Bill Gates is a pedophile or whatever else. Like that's the actual conspiracy, right? It's pretty fascinating. Yeah.
It's super fascinating. It's been interesting to see because almost going back to COVID time, you've got so many people who are at home all day and they're on the internet and they're bored. And then they're just, I've been seeing people who were not really that into conspiracy theories who now are just so deep into it, and just all they're posting on Facebook all day long is about these conspiracy theories. And they're like really affected by it. And I've openly said, like, I like conspiracy theories, and I'm like I don't know, I'm malleable. You can kind of like convince me of stuff. Like, like if you want to be like the moon landing wasn't real, I'm like, maybe it wasn't. Like, I'll give you like a 5% chance, 10% chance, right? Like I'm totally like, that's my personality. But just seeing how people become so like wrapped up in it. And I think a lot of it just has to do with the fact that there's nothing else for them to do, and they've gone down the rabbit hole and aren't stopping. But it's been very interesting, I guess.
Well, it's also like, I was reading something about this the other day, about how like the appeal of conspiracy theories, honestly, is a sense of control, right? A sense that you kind of know what's going on, because the alternative is that nobody's in charge. Nobody fucking knows what they're doing. And we are living in terrifying chaos. Right. Yeah. So it's actually easier to think like, hey, Sandy Hook was an inside job because that fucking guy can go kill himself. I hate whatever his name is. Than it is to just be like, no, the world is just crazy and chaotic. I mean, this is my general philosophy on life, is we're not here for any particular reason. I'm not religious in any way. We're just kind of here. We're here because we're here. And the best thing you can do is try to, I always used to say, worship reality, right? That's what I do in my copy, is I try to get us focused on what is actually happening as possible, and then use that to manipulate people's minds into buying things, because we're all manipulative fucks. That's what we do.
Yeah, it's true. I'd be curious, like Justin and Dan, like Justin, you seem like a very rational guy. Have you ever gone down like conspiracy theory, like rabbit holes, and sort of been moved by them, or have they like influenced you or affected you or anything like that?
I mean, I generally don't trust the government or any like big organization as it is. So I definitely tend to be, I don't know, like with the coronavirus stuff, not as much, but like, I don't know, I think you talk about Jeffrey Epstein, like that's probably a very mass conspiracy that almost isn't really even a conspiracy, where like everyone's like, yeah, something went on there. There's very powerful people who needed him to be dead. Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those people too, though. I'm into a lot. Like, I remember I would spend like one day, like 9 hours on YouTube watching videos on who's the big like Yeti that they saw in the woods? Not Getty. The
Yeti?
The Yeti.
The Bigfoot?
Yeah, the Sasquatch. The Bigfoot.
Harry and the Hendersons?
The Yeti.
Yes. I've literally like that stuff. Like, I guess that's, to me, that's like less of a conspiracy theory, because it's like, if you think about it from the standpoint, like, okay, in the vast woods of the world that have never been seen, do you think there's like an ape-like creature that exists that we haven't discovered yet? So yeah, it seems pretty reasonable.
Except for like, there's less and less actual places in the world that we haven't seen, right? Because we're kind of even the fact that we have this virus is largely because we've been encroaching on nature, and other animals are having viruses skip over to us.
In some areas, but if you think of like Canada, which is covered by like 60%,
true,
like wilderness,
where right, yeah,
nobody lives, like it's pretty plausible that there's apes and creatures like that walking around that we've probably never seen.
Did you guys ever read the book Conspiracy? There's a book that came out a few years ago. I forget who wrote it, but it's about Peter Thiel. and how he took down Gawker Media, right? So he ended up like secretly, he got pissed off at Gawker Media because I think they outed him as gay or whatever else it was. And then he actually did this like multi-year conspiracy where he spent 10, 15, $20 million like finding like Hulk Hogan and backing his entire legal case just to take down Gawker. And it's like, yeah, like actual conspiracies do exist, but they're generally kind of small. Like there's no way to organize millions of people to have a conspiracy about like flat earthers, right? Like freaking flat earthers are fascinating to me. But it's like, no, guys, like humans aren't that smart or aren't that organized. Nobody could actually pull that off. It's just shit happens.
The one thing I also think like let's just say like Barack Obama and George Bush and Bill Clinton like sat down. They're like, we're gonna do an 8-hour special and tell you everything that goes on in the world that you don't know.
Oh God,
about.
yeah.
I bet it would be so fucking scary that you literally would not believe it.
Except for Trump wouldn't be there because he hasn't read any of the reports, so he doesn't actually know. He's like, well, they showed me some pictures, but I don't really know.
But like the people who actually know what's going on, I feel like if they told you everything that went on, it would be so shocking that you honestly wouldn't believe it.
Oh, totally.
I agree with that, Justin. Like there's a certain amount of sort of protectionism, I think, behind a lot of this, whether or not it's malintent or actual conspiracies, I don't know. But even with the coronavirus, like I'm sure there's stuff that we don't know about its origins or how it got out of control or how long it's been around that it doesn't really help us to know. Eventually, I think it'll all probably come out. I think there's going to be something similar to like a 9/11 commission on this.
Oh, I hope so.
And then we're going to have a lot of insight into how things went really wrong.
And people will be really angry
and feel like shit. Yeah. And then there's going to, just like 9/11, there's going to be a whole overhaul of the system. They're going to spend billions of dollars and be hopefully back to normal.
And we'll leave ourselves completely unprepared for all of the other crises that
for
we're
the next thing. Yeah.
Because you're always fighting the last war, right? That's what they say. You're always fighting the last war. It's like, oh, well, we had horses last time, but now they have tanks. Shit. What are we going to do? It's a crazy world, man.
It is. The one thing I think about too, going with conspiracy theories and like the really big, like kind of like global government, like New World Order type things is if you look at people at the top of any sort of organization that's really large, like the egos are so massive and so huge that getting them to all just like get along and agree to go along with something is very unlikely, right? It's like, because then like people have competing visions and they're kind of undermining each other. And like, that's just sort of human nature in general. So I just don't see a situation where like 100 like world leaders come together and they're all like, oh yeah, that we all agree with that. It's like, that's just not how humans work, right?
That's a really good point.
I think
especially like narcissists who are generally running everything, right? Like
generally.
To be a world leader, you have to basically be some level of narcissist. You can't.
Have any of you guys watched? I think it's on Netflix. It's called The Greatest Events of World War II in Color or something like that.
Yeah,
I saw the World War I one that was really interesting.
Talk a lot about the generals making decisions on ego and how people very high up caused significant shifts in the course of the war because they had certain beliefs that they wouldn't back down from. And I think that proves your point, Stefan. It's just like, there's no way that you can get all these people in power to see the same way, even when in a case like that, they're on the same side, they're fighting for the same country and they still can't agree. And it ends up backfiring on them.
Yeah. I mean, look at, to tie it to copywriting, since we're all copywriters, it's like, you have like a great promotion that goes to really, really warm traffic that all kind of agree to the same thing, but you convince like, anywhere from 1 to like 5% of them that like, to like take action or something like that. Like, it's like, I guess that's different because you're getting them to buy, but like the point being just even with like a really warm audience, like they're not all going to take the same actions or have the same beliefs. And like, to your point, like Hitler, if he hadn't, like all his generals were like, don't go into like Russia or the Soviet Union. And he's like, nah, I'm going to go into Soviet Union. And they're like, well, don't go to Stalingrad. And he's like, nah, I'm going to go to Stalingrad. And then like, basically that's why Germany lost like World War II. But even then he had generals who were like, he was like, don't do this in Africa. I'm like reading a World War II book right now. And it's like, yeah, just constantly people in power who are supposed to be on the same team, just totally undermining each other. It's really fascinating.
Well, there's that level of just like believing they're right? Like, I mean, our president, like Trump, I don't want to get into politics. There's no real point, but Trump firmly believes that he is the one person in the world who actually knows the right thing to do and that he's a genius and that everyone should fall behind him. He's not faking it. He actually believes that. He's just wrong. But the narcissism and the ego is so inflated that he can't even see outside himself not to see it. It's unfortunate. I mean, what's the old adage? Like, anybody that wants the job of president shouldn't have it, because we don't want that kind of person to actually be in charge. We want Stefan to be in charge instead.
Yeah.
You ever heard the
narcissist?
Have you ever heard the Bill
We're
Burr
all
joke?
narcissists, my friend.
Bill Burr, when he talks about you can't make fun or you can't rip on the president. He's like, the guy makes like $500,000 a year. Like,
he works really hard for not that much money, honestly. So.
Seriously.
I think they get paid in other ways, weirdly enough. I think it comes back to them eventually, one way or another. Actually, did you hear that like Bill Clinton like left office $13 million in debt? Because he wasn't like rich when he got into office. And then with the impeachment inquiry and everything else, he was like severely fucked when he actually got out of office. Plus the president has to buy all his own food.
That's why he had to have Hillary charge $1 million per speaking fee.
Dude, if you could charge $1 million per speaking fee, you would too. Come on.
All day.
I wouldn't turn that shit down. I'll go talk at like Brown Brothers or whatever the fuck it is. Give me $1 million for an hour. I'll even talk for 2 hours. I'll hang out and like shake hands afterwards. I'll even give you like a massage of some kind for that amount of money. It is amazing to me that people get so on their high horse, but it's like, dude, if somebody offered you that, I think you'd take it too.
Yeah,
it is weird. It is interesting. Like,
I wouldn't, but I'm not running for office in the future. So.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
It is interesting how that's like turned so much where like being successful now and charging that kind of money is seen as a bad thing. Whereas like
at the Democratic primaries where they're arguing over who's the poorest.
Yeah, it's like,
totally.
it really is crazy. It's like, I mean, that's one of the things though that Trump did so well. Like when you compare him to like Romney was super ashamed of how rich he was.
Yeah.
And you could just feel it.
Yep.
And Trump is just like, yeah, I'm fucking rich. Like, that's what you want. Like, and I mean, when you take that angle, like a lot more people buy into your confidence.
Well, people will follow it. Like I discovered years ago, my ex-wife asked me at one point, she's like, Chris, who made you a relationship expert? When I started up all the Michael Fiore stuff. And granted, I was much more narcissistic back then because I wasn't diagnosed for bipolar and all that stuff. But my answer was I did. I made myself a relationship expert. And people, like the thing I figured out in relationship advice and in info products in general is it doesn't really matter what you know or what you teach. It matters more that you're willing to be the leader because people just want to find somebody who follow, who at least seems like they know what they're doing, whether they actually do or not. So like projecting that level of confidence is in a lot of ways more powerful than being
the authority. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. People will just want somebody who is like, as my dad used to say, if you're a tall white guy in a suit, you can get away with pretty much anything in America. And he was right.
Yeah, he was.
What do you guys think about, like, I noticed a lot, one thing I kind of enjoy about this is that a lot of our internet marketing friends are not putting pictures of their incredible cars on Facebook anymore. They're being a little bit more humble about it. Or at least, now granted, most of those people are actually broke anyway. The people I know that are actually killing it are usually the ones who think that sports cars are stupid and live in kind of reasonable homes and, all the other stuff. But I was thinking this morning about BizOps stuff and about make money online stuff. And I wonder if there's opportunity here to kind of pivot the messaging a little bit. So instead of making it about, you're going to make $1 million a year at home while, never putting on pants, et cetera. I think there's an opportunity to be even a little bit more straight and honest about things and say like, hey guys, are you going to become a millionaire out of this like I did? Probably not. I have no idea. But the last thing you want to do is have to trust somebody else to put food in your family's mouth. Right? Like we've already seen that cannot happen. So I think there's something there from a make money kind of thing where you can do it in a way that isn't so over the top and therefore not as dangerous as far as getting in trouble with the FTC or anything. I kind of wonder about the messaging there. Something I find fascinating.
Yeah, I actually had a really good conversation with Jordan Hall about this when he used to do BizOps stuff back in like 2008ish when that downturn happened. And he was talking about how his product was completely different. Everybody else's was the become a millionaire kind of internet system type thing. And he had one about how to make like 500 extra bucks a week.
Yep.
Like all these little things you could do. And it was called like Project Fast Cash or something like that. And he was saying how it just absolutely outconverted everything. And I was like, yeah, it makes sense. Cause like the person who's making $35,000 a year, who's going to buy that product has no belief that they could make $1 million.
It's like the attainable promise thing. Did you guys hear about on Pornhub? There was, those ads. I'm assuming all of you guys have seen Pornhub. I have no
idea what you're talking about.
Never, ever. But do you know those ads that you see all the time that are up there that are like moms want to fuck or local moms want to fuck or local whatever? And the guy who ran that, I forget who it is, but a friend of mine knows him, originally was running ads for that, which had super duper hot chicks, right? Like model quality chicks, 20 years old, whatever. And then at some point, somebody decided decided to test out putting kind of normal looking women in their 30s and 40s in there instead. And their freaking conversions went through the roof, like overnight. And that kind of makes sense, right? Because most guys who are on Pornhub who have no luck with women whatsoever are looking at these hot models and they're like, there's no freaking way I'd have a chance whatsoever. But hey, that girl, you know, the girl with the kind of butter face, I could make that happen. You know, we'll turn off the lights. It'll be fine. But I think there's something there about like, you know, not going, I like hype as much as anybody, probably even a little bit more. But I think there is a point that you get to like past the point of believability and you're cutting off a huge part of your market. We just can't even drink. When I first became a copywriter, the biggest I could dream was 45 grand a year. That was the biggest I could dream, right?
45 grand a year?
Yeah, that's the, like, when I first got into like doing corporate copy when I was like 25, 26, the career counselor I went to see, I said this in my speech on your thing, said like, you know, what's the biggest you can dream? And for me, it was like, if I can just make $45,000 a year as a writer, I'll be happy. That was the high. If somebody had told me, Chris, you're going to become a millionaire as a writer, I would have told them they were full of shit. Like, I just couldn't even get my brain around the concept at that point.
This would be a good question. Do you guys remember the first dollar you made online?
I do.
I do as well. Yeah. I've been talking a lot, so I'll let somebody else go first.
Mm-hmm. Look at you. Go ahead, Dan.
Me talking a lot?
The first thing that I did, so my story is sort of like I had no desire to continue my office job and I wanted to move to Hawaii. So I just saved up a bunch of money and moved here and quit the job, and basically had been told copywriting is a good way to make your own schedule and surf as much as you want. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. And I had no idea what it was or how to do it. So I went on Odesk and I applied for a job, and it was $15 to write like a SEO, basically like a Warrior Forum-esque SEO, not even sales letter. I'd call it more of a brochure, but probably took me 4 hours. So $15, I was really earning good money back then. And living in Hawaii, dude, it was terrible. Like Chris is talking right now about 45 grand. I remember the first year, like the first full year I was writing copy, I think I made maybe 25 grand. And I saw a guy on, it was probably Cold of Copy or something, leave a comment like, I've been doing this for a year and I just made 50 grand. And I was like, holy shit, like that is a lot of money. I wish I could do that.
Now you're making that off one project.
Yeah,
right. Like, it's like nothing now.
It is funny when you get cynical, and like for a lot of stuff I do, if I'm ever going to work with a client, I'm like, dude, I'm not getting out of bed for less than 100 grand. I'm sorry. I just can't do it. I can work on my own stuff and then go like, you know, roll around on my electric unicycle around Seattle all day instead.
I hope you have that and you can take it out in the room you're in right now.
Oh, I could show it to you. It's pretty great. I know it's actually, it goes like 30 miles an hour, so I'm not going to put it in here. It's a great way to get yourself killed if you're stupid. But
the video just ends with you crashing into a wall. And then...
totally.
Stefan, I'm curious, what was the first dollar you made?
Yeah, I mean, mine was from Warrior Forum actually, and it was because I finally kind of had that last corporate job in 2012, like early on. And it was like really a good job, all things considered. Like I had a Ford Escape, like a new Ford Escape. It was an outside sales job. So they gave me a car, they would pay for gas, but they would pay for my gas even if it wasn't for work. Like I literally got free gas with this car, and I'm in Florida. I think I was making like 40,000 a year, which up till that point had always been kind of like my goal in life as well. Like I thought like, oh, maybe one day I can get to 100,000 a year. But I thought that was when I was like in my 40s or 50s. And at the time I was in my like, you know, mid 20s type of thing. And, but I just like wasn't happy. And my wife, you know, Laura, my wife was like, you're unemployable. And I was like, do you think I can be a copywriter? She said, yeah. So I posted on Warrior Forum under actually her account. So it's basically about her protege. I wrote like, oh, my protege, you know, is ready to like write like a sales like letter for you. And I wrote this whole thing and I charged $149 for the sales letter. And at the very end, it was like, you know, PS, like, if you think this copy is good, like my protege actually wrote it, which was like kind of like the big twist. But, you know, I woke up the next day and I had, I guess, it would have been like $298 in my PayPal account. So Brian Zimmerman hired me, who was like the founder of, one of the founders of JV Zoo and was big on Warrior Forum back in the day. And I forget who the other person was, like Wilco de Crigi, or however you say his name. He hired me really early on. Mike Buontempo, who's in Copy Accelerator, actually hired me really early on.
Wow.
But yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like I remember, I think Mike paid me $149 a sales letter back then too. And it's kind of crazy thinking about that from that perspective. But But yeah, I woke up with $298 in my PayPal account, and I was like, well, I'm like quitting my job. And I quit my job like pretty much like that same week. I gave them like a, whatever notice it was, like a 4-week notice. And, but honestly kind of stopped going to the job after that because it was like a remote sales job. So I just stay in my apartment and like write copy and chill, and then just sort of like log in. Like I'd go to like a store and then go home, and like that was it. But yeah, it was like really that feeling of like, I've won the lottery, the greatest feeling in the world. Like all the lies we tell ourselves, like I'm going to go to Europe and be writing in like a cafe while I sip coffee or wine.
I don't want to do that.
Shit. Yeah, I don't want to either. But at the time it sounded so sexy. But now I'm like, I don't want to go to Europe.
It's good copy. Yeah.
But yeah, that was mine.
Nice.
Have you guys had go ahead, Justin. Yeah.
Mine's interesting because mine came in like a bunch of different waves. Like when I was in high school, I started doing, there was this program, I think it was called like All Advantage, where you got paid to like surf the internet. This was like back when like AOL, everybody was on AOL and you had one dial up in your house. And I remember I started
by now.
I started using it, and you like installed it on your whatever your browser, and like you get paid to surf. And like one of my buddies found out there was like this hack you could do where it like surfed for you, so you could just leave the computer on. It would like just move the mouse across the screen for like 10 hours, and like you get paid for it. And I remember I did that, and I think I made like $70 or something doing that. And like literally we're just clogging up our phone line like 9 hours a day for like for $70. Nobody could call our house. Like I still remember my parents like talking about, I was like, oh, why don't we just get a second phone line? And like we had this big discussion about like that's what rich people do. Like we don't need a second phone line.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
Like $15 a month for it.
It's way too much, man.
So that was like the first dollar I made online. And then when I did like affiliate marketing in college, that was probably actually, sorry, before that, when I started selling my sports picks for gambling stuff in college, that was the first time when I had somebody buy one after basically about 7 months of spamming forums and trying to get people to buy my picks and nobody buying anything. Someone bought a $149 pick package from me, and I jumped up and down and was going crazy.
Such an amazing feeling of like power. Were you guys raised like, I don't know, how like financially, where were you guys when you were growing up? Were you, any of you like rich? Were you middle class? Was anybody poor? What was the background?
Super loaded.
Super loaded? Really? I don't know your family too. You don't seem like an obnoxious fucktard trust fund kid, but who knows?
Trust fund. No, my family's very, my family has like, it's interesting. There's like two sides to it. Cause like very blue collar, like I grew up thinking it's very similar to what you guys were talking about. $50,000 would be a crazy amount of money to make a year.
Yeah.
Very blue collar, like mentality of like work. Like my dad works in a factory. My mom was like a waitress when I was younger. We lived in a pretty small, normal house, public school, all that shit. But then we had other sides of our family where like my great grandpa was a super wealthy like entrepreneur. He sold a company to Oscar Mayer for like $40 million in the 80s.
Wow. Holy shit.
Back then that was a
lot. Yeah.
A lot of money.
Yeah. Because $40 million right now is nothing. Really.
Yeah.
$40 million right now is nothing.
I was actually like adding that up the other day. I was like 40 million. I was like, man, if he would have like just stuck that in a Vanguard index fund and passed it down through the family, we'd have like half of it.
That's true. Yeah.
He actually gave it like all the way to charity.
That's cool.
Oh wow, that asshole.
Yeah. I remember when I was young, actually, like I didn't understand it, and I was like, "Why the hell would he do that? Like he could have like gave that to all of us." And I like kind of realized it more. And his whole reason was simply like, most people who just inherit money are gonna blow it.
Totally. Yeah.
Well,
we've all seen people in internet marketing who make a fuck ton of money out of nowhere. Like everybody, from what I can tell, who starts making a fuck ton of money, you kind of become an asshole for like a year or two, and then maybe you pull yourself out of it. And usually, I mean, I think we all know people that were killing it 5-10 years ago who are dead broke and just out of the industry now. I think it's largely because people start buying their own press and thinking they're smarter than they actually are. When largely you're.
I think it's also just the evolution of the business in the last 10 years was like 70 years of evolution prior to that. I think there's a lot to be said for that too.
I
Especially
was out of it for a few years because I was sick, and then I came back and I'm like, what the fuck changed? Shit, everything's different.
I do say, like, for me personally, I'm like, thank God that I didn't really start making real money until I like hit like 30. I guess my very, very end of my 20s, I was making good money as a copywriter, but really, I mean, it's 2020 now. Yeah, so maybe like 28, 29. But at least at that point, it was like I'd had enough life experiences and been through enough that even as the money was coming in, like it wasn't, I did some dumb shit. Like I went and bought like a Mercedes AMG 55, and then it was like 70,000. I paid like 40,000 down on it so that the payment would be lower. And it's like, what? I literally wasted $40,000 on a fucking, like, it was the dumbest thing I've ever done. Like I did some dumb shit when I made money. But yeah, I'm like, but thank God it didn't happen when I was like 21 or 22. Cause I for sure like would have, like, I already had a cocaine problem in 21 a little bit anyway. It's like, I for sure would have killed myself from cocaine, like maybe killed myself from drinking. I would have, like, who knows what the fuck, I'd be the biggest asshole. And maybe I would have gone through that whole hero's journey and still come out as this wise kind of grizzled man afterwards. But I'm very fortunate. I feel that I didn't get success until a little bit later.
What was your upbringing like?
It was like it was middle class to like, I mean, it got more upper middle class as I got older. So it was like very much middle class. My dad was the first employee for a loudspeaker company called like Polk Audio. So they did like home stereo systems and stuff like that. And he had like a small piece of equity in that. So like, I think, I don't know, like 3%, something like that, which they sold it in like 28 or 9 for, the company sold for like $150 million. And he got like a couple $1 million from that, nice. Which was awesome. Then he died like 2 years later, which is why, nothing's like certain in this life. Right. But because he was like the first employee, like we didn't want for anything, but we didn't take like elaborate, like crazy trips places or fly like first class around the world. It was like anything like that. And there were times where when the business would like struggle during a downturn, that then money would get really tight, and like it would be kind of like one of those weird things where when you're like, but I want to go on this school, whatever it is, and suddenly your parents are like, well, too tough shit, like we can't we can't do that right now. So but overall it was definitely middle class to like eventually getting kind of, I guess, relatively speaking, more like upper middle class. How about you, Dan? I'd be curious about that.
I'd say pretty similar. My dad was an architect and my mother was a nurse. So, both well-paying jobs, but sort of the type of job where, you get your 3 to 5% every year and it just sort of compounds. And they both worked those careers for their entire lives, from their 20s to their mid 60s. So yeah, I think it probably started off relatively middle class, especially because I grew up just outside of Washington, D.C., which is a fairly expensive area to live. So when we were little, right, like I never starved or wanted for anything, but our vacations were driving to the Delaware shore as opposed to, going to Europe or something like that. But the thing that I think was great about the way my parents raised me around money is they've always believed in the power of making your money work for you. It's probably how I wound up, doing stuff like writing for the Motley Fool. I bought my first stock probably when I was like 19 years old or something like that. And I've pretty much been managing my money, I think, very wisely since I got out of college and had that first job. And I can really thank my parents and especially my dad for that. And, right now, I was sort of texting Stefan about this a little bit over the past few weeks, like being able to just observe what's going on in the economy for me has been, I hesitate to use the word fun, but fascinating.
Entertaining, maybe.
Entertaining.
Yeah.
It's on, Stefan just watched The Big Short, so he'll remember this. There's a line in it when the two kids close out the huge deal, right? And Brad Pitt gets all pissed off and he's like, every 1% that unemployment goes up, 40,000 people die. And so there's always this weird kind of situation that you have to think about with big market crashes like this. But it is wild to just watch, and I've enjoyed seeing it happen, I guess, from a intellectual standpoint.
From a psychological standpoint, it's always interesting. We're all copywriters, right? So all we really do is study human nature and, in my case, develop a certain level of cynicism about it. But it is really fascinating just watching how people react to this kind of thing and the psychological defense mechanisms people use and the conspiracies they come up with and the panic buying and the panic selling and all that other kind of shit. It's just, man, we're crazy monkeys.
One interesting question I actually have about something you just said, Chris, about the cynicism is like, I was talking to a member of Copy Accelerator actually, who's starting to write more, more punch in the gut copy. And he was talking about how he's sort of like a secret cynic who like hates like a lot of humanity and humankind. And so he was going to create these like sort of stories for these like dummies kind of like, right. Not that the products rip off, but he was really kind of like, but then I told him, and this is true, I kind of felt the same way in 2014, 2015. I didn't like hate them, but I did kind of like think, you know, these like people, or they're just like, they're dumb and they'll like, I kind of like, but over time I've changed. Like, I don't feel that way. And I don't write copy to those people. And I haven't felt that way for a long time, but I did have that for a period of time. So I'd be curious, I guess, for all of you guys, like if you really do have a cynicism when you're writing copy, or is it like just like a love, or, you know, how do you approach that?
I have a cynicism for human psychology, but not a cynicism for people, if that makes sense, right? Like I have a cynicism as far as what human nature is and trying to have as clear and a realistic a view of what we are as animals and how our brains work as possible. But I have a lot of empathy for human beings, right? And what we're all going through. My ex used to ask me, there's a lot of reasons my ex is my ex, and here's another one of them. But she would say, who are these women who buy these products from you? What is wrong with them? And I'm like, these are the women that bought our house, and you will fucking respect them because they're in pain and they're not stupid people, and they're not, there's nothing wrong with them or bad about them, but they're in pain. They've been sold this bill of goods about what men are supposed to be and what love is supposed to be. And now they're 35 or 40 or 50 and they're desperate and they're looking for somebody to tell them how to get out of it. I don't think you can actually write good copy if you don't understand it in some ways like your customer or like the people you're selling to, at least while you're writing it, right? If I'm writing like copy to hardcore conservatives, I don't go in there with the idea of like, hey, I'm going to trick these assholes into giving me money. While I'm writing it, I think like a conservative, you know, nut bar, like right-wing nut bar. And then I come back out of it on the other side.
Yeah, makes sense. What about you, Justin?
I don't know. I mean, for me, it's much more temporary. Empathy is definitely something that I've always just struggled with in general, because I've always been pretty detached emotionally. So for me, it's more like kind of what Chris said of getting into the mindset, and then really just I'm in it for the project, and then I'm kind of out of it. Whereas I think some people like Chris, who's probably way more empathetic than I am, could be in that mindset a lot more. And he actually really like deep down cares about that person. For me, the one thing though I have realized, I didn't have a whole lot of empathy when I was writing like copy for supplements, and I never got to see the customers. But like with Copy Accelerator, and we actually interact with all of the people who are in our program, the empathy for me has gone up dramatically doing that. Because now I really know who it is. And I know what their life is like, and I've met them in person 3 or 4 times. That for me, I've realized made a huge shift because, yeah, like when I was writing stuff for the supplements, it's like I don't ever see these people. I don't interact with them. I don't talk with them. I have an idea who they are, but it was a lot harder for me to have empathy in that type of situation.
I remember the first time somebody in our industry bought one of my men's relationship advice products. Like I saw it come in. It was my Text Your Wife into Bed products, and like 3 different guys I know in our business all bought it. And I was like, oh wait, now I know my customer really well. Shit.
They're like, no, man, I'm just funnel hacking.
What about you, Dan? As far as like, you don't strike me as a very cynical guy in general, but I'd just be curious about, you know.
Yeah, I'm not very cynical. I tend to, maybe to a fault, give people the benefit of the doubt. But I am smart enough to understand, I guess, the contextualization of everything, right? So as far as cynicism, I think under normal circumstances, I believe people tend to be pretty good and do good things. But, you know, I'm also smart enough, or maybe scared enough, to understand that when shit hits the fan, people are only self-interested. So you're only as I guess the good nature of humanity, in my opinion, only goes as far as like the safety of the people you're dealing with. Once they feel they're not safe, then everything goes out the window. As far as how that plays out in copy, I think I was very fortunate at the Motley Fool because they have an incredible relationship with their customers. And they really care about their products and their quality. And we would see stuff come in where it would be like, my husband died unexpectedly and we didn't have much, and your products essentially saved me from being destitute.
Damn.
And we would take the time to search those people out. Sometimes we would do more extensive testimonial shoots where we'd fly video teams out there and do some of these really heart-wrenching type things where we'd talk to some of these people who had more or less changed their lives or changed the direction of sort of the financial chains that are generational for a lot of people. And that really kind of helped me see that, because before that, it's like, whatever, I'm selling a $49 financial newsletter with a couple stocks picks in it a month. Like, who's this helping? It's helping people who really need it, I guess, was kind of the answer to that I didn't understand before that. And so I think ever since then, regardless of the product or the industry or the niche or whatever, I do realize that someone who goes through, say, a 50-minute video sales letter, there is actually room for them to be helped, whether it's on an abstract level, if it's more just you're helping them emotionally or feel better, or if there really are tangible benefits in the case of money or health or something like that. Yeah, I mean, as long as that happens, I'm pretty happy to work on the project, to be honest.
What's kind of interesting is like, back to what Justin said as well about empathy and what you said too, Dan. Actually all three of you really. With my first like house supplement company, when in 2015, which is when I launched it, and we were doing like email drops, right? That's all we were buying, email drops. And, and the company it lost like money the first year and almost kind of didn't work, which is its own interesting thing. Cause like if that had happened, would I have had the confidence to do all these things that I've done? But even early on, I remember like I hired customer service people like really early on. But they didn't work on the weekends. We had like a huge drop, and I saw that there was all these people calling and people weren't answering. So I went into we were in a Regis, we had like a Regis office, and I went in and just did the phones one weekend for I don't know, maybe 8 hours. And this was before that I'd been a copywriter, but I never done phone support for my products or anything. And it was so fascinating because just talking to the people, I did get so many insights, and I did actually really feel like I understood them better. And it was fun, cause some of them would be like, well, that video, it's pretty outrageous. And I know you're kind of just trying to be entertaining, and it was entertaining and I was bored, but will this product actually help to support my blood sugar? And you're like, well, it's got these ingredients and I think it could, trying to obviously not, to be compliant on the phones and everything like that. But even the fact that a lot of them knew the marketing was kind of over the top, and they were totally cool with that. It wasn't there were these dumb people who'd been fooled. They're I'm bored. I'm 65, bored at home. This video entertained me, and it sounds like a good product. And you're like, oh shit, that's totally different, right? And then just the ones who maybe weren't as technologically sophisticated, and that gave you insights into how they didn't understand the way your checkout worked, and just it was really, really cool. So I kept doing that for a while. I stopped, but I did it for a couple months where I would go in on weekends and do the calls. And I think that probably really helped me to be a better marketer and copywriter, and probably even a human being. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I remember on the same note, the first time, so when I wrote some of the copy for Alan and them for their survival stuff, they sent me over, there was basically 5 or 6 videos they did of testimonials with a couple of their customers who had bought generators and survival food, and who had actually gone through hurricanes and storms and stuff. And they had all these testimonials from them. I had been writing copy for them for a little bit already. And I remember after I watched those videos, my jaw was just on the ground at how much I was writing so far above these people's heads. It just hit me smack in the face. I was oh, every one of these people is Billy Bob and Billie Jean living in a trailer in Texas, and then this other guy who's literally while they're interviewing him drinking a Budweiser in his his house wearing his Oklahoma Sooners hat. I was like, oh my God, I'm like talking like at this level, and these people like just salt of the earth, blue collar, like that's who they are. But it changed the way I wrote copy to them, because I just started like simplifying everything and just talking in much more just normal language that your buddy who's a construction worker would talk like.
Yeah, it's a huge thing. I mean, even now, Justin and I see that in Copy Accelerator, but like people will write these like long, dense sentences and kind of be really academic. And it sounds, I think for all of us, I would imagine we all are very conscious of not doing that. But even the kind of like experienced writers don't always like put that together. And so, that's a huge thing that's changed my writing too, is really trying to stay at that like 7th grade reading level and like the bar stool test, right? I imagine I'm sitting at a bar next to somebody and I'm telling them about some discovery, like while we're like a couple Budweisers deep, and like that's the way I try to talk to them. And it's a huge difference versus when you're talking to like your professor at college, or you're talking to like your boss or whatever. Did you guys remember like kind of did you guys have a conscious moment, I guess? Because I did. Somebody showed me like the Flush Kincaid thing in the grade level, and that I was writing at like a 17th grade level. And they were like, you should be writing at like a 7th grade. It was like 14 to 18, most of my stuff.
So graduate school, basically.
It goes up to like 22%. I don't know. They just I don't know how they decide what that grade level is. But yeah, basically it was like really high level. And I started like basically trying to do everything at like a 7th grade or below level. And my copy conversions, it was a complete, kind of direct relationship between, as I simplified, my copy did better and better. So I had an actual time where somebody like showed that to me. Did you guys just figure that out on your own, or did somebody kind of tell you, or how
I've always kind of written that way. I have stuff that I wrote back in like college and high school that I still have on my computer, and I've always kind of written that way. I've always been like, I also know like nothing about grammar. Do you guys have this happen where you still get people like sending an email saying, hey, I got your email and there's some grammatical issues in it. And I'm like, I don't fucking care. I don't give a shit about that thing. I'm never going to use Grammarly for anything. Like, that's not what I'm going for. I'm looking for communication, not for like, what is the right way to do it? For me personally, like my background is all in essay writing and theatrical writing and screenwriting and stuff like that. So for me, it's always been about dialogue and how people actually talk. And I just try to write. Literally when I'm writing, I sit here and just talk to myself the entire time. I cannot work at like an open office plan of any kind, because I can't actually do what I do unless I can mumble to myself the entire time while I'm doing it.
Dan, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I was ever writing like a super high grade level, but I do remember. So when I was at the Motley Fool, I wrote this package on Social Security, and the real breakthrough I had after that was not only was the writing simple, but just sort of the premise was very simple. And it was a very straightforward type of idea. And I remember really thinking like a lot of the stuff that I had worked on prior to that, I had become a victim of trying to make my ideas too big. Mm. And so ever since then, I've kind of fallen to this idea where if I can't describe my entire promo in 5 short sentences, that it goes out the window, because there's no way that an uneducated or unaware customer who has no idea what I'm going to talk about can get it at any more than that.
Well, that's really interesting though, because like going back to our conversation about conspiracy theories are generally really, really complicated and require these mental gymnastics to try to kind of find these patterns and make it work. And those are appealing to people who are not necessarily the best educated as well. So I think I wonder what it is about those that makes it possible to have these like really, connections all over the place, really complicated things actually stick for people.
Is it that you could sum it up very easily, like 9/11 was an inside job because it benefited the vice president?
Maybe, yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
And even though they're like elaborate, but there's like there's a lot of different dots, but there's like an elaborate web connecting them, but the dots themselves aren't that complex, right? It's like 5G is
it's pretty linear,
yeah, like causes radiation and blah blah blah. Like COVID, or hurts your immune system. Like COVID-19 happened in Wuhan. Like Wuhan is where 5G started. Like but it's like they're like little kind of facts that then they start connecting them in weird ways and then making a logical flow. But the actual snippets aren't that bad. It's more the way that it's the leaps that are in the synapses, the connections more.
I think it's also like telling people things they want to believe, right? Things they're already pre-primed to believe, or things that you'll never go broke telling people they're right. Right.
Yeah.
Like you'll just never, ever go. But like, people just want to hear the ideas they already have are the right ones, and it's going to be confirmed. And really, these people are all against you. Everybody wants to be the victim. Everybody wants to be special.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I always think about with conspiracy stuff and people who are really into that and who it appeals to, I've read a couple emails about this. Like, they live in a world where they see everything through the lens of mistrust. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not just government stuff. It's like their insurance company. They're at a restaurant. They think somebody's screwing them over there. Like, it's everything. Like, it's not just one thing. Like, everything they see is there's just this mistrust lens.
It's a tremendous victim mentality too, right? It's this feeling of like a lack of power, or the big guy is trying to screw you in some way. It's interesting how many people just want to be victims. Well, it's also like, copy 101, like it's never your fault, right? Like these are people that are desperately looking for a way for nothing to be their fault at any time because they can't handle it.
Those are really, and like, I think it was in the first season of Game of Thrones, and it's hard to find, but basically, I'm assuming, I don't know if you guys have all seen Game of Thrones, or at least the first season or anything like that, but
part of it.
Like Littlefinger, who's obviously one of the characters, he's in like the whorehouse, and he's like coaching one of the whores, but she's like, like moaning and faking, like being like all into it. But he's basically like, no, like that's not how to do it. And he has this whole monologue about how it's like he knows that he's like paying you, right? He knows that like that, but like what he wants is like to feel like, that he's special. It's like, like he's like, his cock's bigger than the other men's cocks. He's always been better than other men. Like, he's always known it in his heart. Now you're telling him it's true. He really is better than all these other men. He really is like the alpha male, like whatever. And it's actually this great copywriting monologue. It's not particularly PC, and like, but yeah, I know. But like, it's just that's the way it is, right? It's sort of like in copywriting, you're essentially saying, hey, you're right. Your cock always was the best. Like, great news. And, here's
except
the
for
reason why
except for the
people
guys that are really into the opposite. Yeah.
Here's how to make it better.
yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Here's the one missing piece you didn't know about your cock.
Mm-hmm. I have a sales letter I can't write because like I fucked up my back really badly years ago. I got in this car wreck in my 20s, and I've been fixing that over the last few years, doing a lot of yoga, doing a lot of Pilates, doing a lot of all these other things, and slowly rebuilding my body. And about a year and a half ago, my wife and I are having sex, and she's like, "What the fuck is going on? What?" And it turns out by like fixing my back and my hips and all this other stuff, my dick had actually gotten like an inch bigger. Because it had been like, because of the way I was standing and the way, like it just more of it kind of came out in some way. And I'm like, I don't think I can actually make a product about this. Like, step one, get in a horrible car wreck when you're 25. Step two, spend thousands of hours trying to fix yourself. And then somehow, some way you get a bigger dick.
Like whatever, yoga burns.
Yogacock.com.
Yoga growth.
Oh my God.
Hey man, Pilates makes your penis better. You should try it. It's great. Not bigger, but better.
Those niches have always been fascinating to me. To like grow your penis, or the product about how to grow taller is like probably.
Oh yeah. Well, you have the secret though, right? Like you grew taller than anybody in like 3 years or something. Yeah.
But that one like is always just fascinating to me. I've actually never looked at like I'm very curious like what they have in the product, because I actually have no idea. Like, is it just a bunch of like back bends and stuff you got to do? That
you just
like,
put a valve in there and then you blow into it and you inflate your dick. Yeah. I don't know, but I find it interesting though. So obviously I work in the niche of like relationship advice stuff, and I know women very well, and I talk to women very well. And it's interesting because the guys that are like, I need to be taller or whatever else, it's true that most women do not want to date a guy who is shorter than them. But if you're going to be a guy who's shorter than them, the way to do that is to be confident about it and to accept that and to own your shortness, right? It's like I'm a very hairy guy. It would be relatively easy for me to be like, oh my God, I'm so ashamed of all this. But instead, I'm like, yeah, I got back hair. Fuck you. I'm just going to own it. And that becomes very powerful and very attractive, as opposed to the idea of like diminishing yourself in some way. I know guys with tiny dicks who are really confident. They do really well with women. They're also great at giving head, from what I hear.
No personal experience there.
Yeah, not personally, no. Not in that particular case, no.
Were you guys, because speaking of confidence, I mean, I wasn't really particularly confident for a lot of my like life. You know, like I was kind of like chubby and nerdy, and then I was like not nerdy but still chubby, and then I kind of like in high school hit like, you know, worked out and kind of like, I don't know, got like wasn't really fat anymore, but I still felt like a fat kid until like my like mid-20s probably, you know. And I'm like a pretty confident guy now, but I think just having lots of success and, you know, all that kind of stuff really turns out helps with your confidence when you know, have a bunch of wins. But it, you know, it took a long time. I
think.
What do you say?
Just growing older, I think, helps.
That's part of it. Yeah.
That's a big part of it too. I remember I remember talking to a friend who was in his like early 40s when I was in my like mid 20s, and I forget the context, but basically he was like, the only difference between like where I am now and where I'm when I was your age is like the amount of fucks I give is like way less. And I didn't totally get it at the time, but now even getting into my mid 30s, I'm like, oh, I get it. Cause like there's all kinds of shit I just don't give a fuck about anymore.
I have a joke about that, which is when you're in your like teens and your 20s and you're out and your fly is down, you're like, oh fuck, my fly is down. You have to like, you know, get a little embarrassing, move over. When you're 42 and your fly is down, which was what happened to me today when I went to the supermarket, you just pull up your fly. You're just like, well, fly's down. And then you just move on with your life because who fucking cares? Like, I don't give a shit. Yeah, I love getting older. I'm in my 40s now. It's the happiest I've ever been by far because you just stop caring.
Yeah,
people in general are happier.
I'm in a similar spot. Like I'm 36 now, and I'm in better shape now than I was when I was 25. Like I feel better than when I was 25. I know a lot more about myself than when I was 25. Like if you offer me to go back to be 25, like I would have no interest. I guess if you offer me to go back to be 25 and I knew what I know now and that, then I might.
You kill it. Yeah.
Yeah, then I'd probably do it because that'd be cool. Because I get like 10 free years to.
You just go back to the days when you could buy clicks for 4 cents on Google and make a fuck ton of money. I was talking to Mike Geary about that and just the level of sophistication we have to have in our funnels now compared to 10, 15 years ago when you could just put up a $20 ebook and make a fuck ton of money with no upsells, not knowing anything about traffic or any of that shit. And now it's, you got to fucking put a man on the moon to launch an offer. Yeah, it's crazy. Even like, 10 years ago when I first launched my relationship advice stuff, I got so freaking spoiled because I didn't know anything about traffic. All I did was I'd create an offer, I'd create a VSL, I'd put it on ClickBank, I'd send a few emails and post on Facebook, and then money would just show up out of nowhere. And I never really wanted to know. It was like a quantum computer. I didn't want to look inside the box and see where the traffic was coming from because some of it was like these Indonesian super affiliates who were hacking Facebook all the time and sending tremendous amounts of stuff. And in recent years, I've actually had to learn how to like get my own traffic and work the numbers and shit. It's annoying. It was more fun before.
It is.
When I put out my first weight loss offer on ClickBank in 2010, I was making $2,000 a day profit on Facebook with no upsells. And I had no back end. I didn't even email the list. Like I didn't even collect customers. I didn't realize that's what you're supposed to do. I thought you were supposed to make all the money on the front end. Like, I didn't understand you're supposed to get customers at break even and then like make all the money on the back end.
I remember hearing all that stuff 10 years ago, like 10 years ago when people were saying, you should do this, this, this. I'm like, but I'm making so much money anyway. Like I was making millions of dollars anyway by barely ever doing anything.
Yeah. I mean, if you had a funnel that had the sophistication of your funnel today in 2008, we would not be on this call because we'd all be retired.
Yeah, we'd all be retired. Yeah. Like
we live in Dan in Hawaii right now.
Yeah. I was talking to Geary about that. Geary would be a billionaire by now instead of whatever the fuck he is. Like, yeah, it's nuts.
It's also interesting to think back. Like, I remember at that time, it was like my offer took off and there was like, it was me, Geary, Rob Polis, I think John Benson. There was about 5 offers on ClickBank in the health niche. And there wasn't offers.
There's a whole thing. Wow. Yeah.
Like if you wanted to mail for someone's offer, there was like 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah.
And then you compare that to today, you go in like one Facebook group and it's like, okay, here's 70 different people with health offers that you can mail. Like there was literally just nobody doing what we were doing.
It's interesting, the relationship advice niche, because when I moved into that niche, I came from working as a copywriter in the make money online niche and the health niche and a bunch of other stuff that was a little more hard nosed. And when I came in there and did like Text the Romance back and those things, I kind of made everybody in that particular niche up level, right? They were like, oh, somebody that actually knows how to market. I was getting $2 or $3 EPCs when they were used to like 45-cent EPCs. And for a few years there, as I was putting out offers, there were a ton of new things coming out. And then when I got sick and disappeared, I guess they just didn't know how to do it. But they're just like no new women's offers came out in our niche for like 4 years or something. I can't quite figure out what happened there because I was too distracted. But it's interesting how that particular niche contracted while, health and such never does.
You're totally right. You totally kind of just own that niche, because I am thinking back to when, because again, at 2013, 14, 15, and it was like, everyone was like, even as I was starting to get good and hit my own stride, but it was like, Chris Haddad has a new offer out, like study Chris, whatever, study your copy and read your letters and you're absolutely one of the best writers like ever. It's amazing. And then you obviously disappeared a bit later on, but then nobody stepped in to like this niche that you've just been owning. It's kind of crazy. I wonder if it's because they just felt like they couldn't do it.
Too scared.
Too scared.
It's also like I was willing to be a leader, right? Like I was willing to be the guy, especially because I was much more arrogant back then and more narcissistic back then. And I was willing to just be that hard-nosed, like I'm just going to, if you put a wall in front of me, I'm just going to go through that goddamn wall and I'm going to sell as hard as I can. And the relationship advice niche in general is, besides like Jordan Hall, is not really marketers, right? It's mostly people who got into it through trying to be a relationship advice person or like a therapist or something like that, and then had to learn marketing and generally don't really like marketing. What was that one guy that was at your event after I gave my speech and he was like saying he's in the relationship advice world in some way, and he saw one of my videos and did a VSL kind of based on it, and then somebody wrote him and said, I can't believe you're sending out a hypey Chris Haddad style scammy sales letter. And then the guy was like, but on the upside I made a lot more money and helped a lot more people, right? Which is always kind of how I look at it, which is like, if you have a good product that's actually going to help people, you need to sell it as hard as you can within ethical and legal boundaries, right? Otherwise, you're kind of being a dick because somebody else out there is going to sell them really hard and give them crap instead.
I think you made a good point there. Like a lot of us, like the four of us on this call are much more marketers who go and find the opportunities.
Yep.
And there's a lot more, I remember a lot of people like asking me about that. It's like, I'm in love with the marketing aspect. Like I could sit here and shoot the shit on marketing and conversions and psychology all day. The actual thing that it's doing, like as long as it just kind of appeals to me or I'm somewhat interested in it, like, okay, that's kind of enough for me. So health has always been kind of a hobby of mine. So I like writing health copy. Survival stuff I find really interesting and fun just because there's all these cool like conspiracy stuff you could do and a lot of anger and fear and all kinds of emotion in there. So to me, it's like, I'm not, but yeah, to kind of talk about what you're saying, like there's a lot of people in this industry who come in and it's like, I'm really good at picking stocks and I want the world to see how good I am at picking stocks. And now I got to figure out how to sell this shit so that people can see how good I am at picking stocks.
It's always really funny when, like back in the day, I would regularly get people who would write me and say, hey, Chris, I know you're really great at marketing and you've got this relationship advice stuff. I have this amazing, like I've done this and this, and I have this amazing products and I will give you 10% to market it. And I was like, you've got it backwards, lady.
Backwards, yeah.
You've got it 100% backwards as far as, honestly, even 10% might be too much to give you because the marketing makes and breaks everything. But it's interesting how they don't understand that when they're first getting into it. I had somebody who I did one of my offers with who, of course, after we were really successful with it and she made some good money, I gave her more than I should have, she went off and tried to do it herself, right? She's like, oh, I don't need him. And she bombed miserably. Like the entire thing just went down in flames. Because the marketing is what's important.
That's what you run into in the health niche when you try to hire the doctor to be the face of it.
Yeah.
His jaw like hits the ground. You're like, yeah, you're getting like $1 for every sale we make.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah. You make a lot of money that way if you play the game, right? It's the same thing with like affiliates. Like give them out, Geary was the first guy to give out 75%. And then I think he was the first guy to give out 90% too. And if you can afford to do that, that's the person that makes all the money. Especially these days when it's so much harder than it used to be.
Right. The one thing, speaking of Geary, like I've told this to him, I had a big revelation back in the day, learning how when you're growing a company, at some point you kind of have to make a decision. You could go the Mike Geary route, which is like hire all freelancers, have a very small, maybe 2 or 3 people staff. Everything is like minimal. He's running on ClickBank. He doesn't have his own merchant accounts. Like, or you go the other way where it's like you have a 60-person staff, you have your own office building, but a lot of people don't realize like you have to make that decision at some point. You can't just like toe the line. Like, and Mike, it's really cool watching how he does it because it's like every decision has to go through that filter, which is like, this is a lifestyle business for me. I want to make X amount of money a year. I want to ski 4 times a week. I want to travel. And if this is going to interfere with that, I'm not doing it.
Yep. As opposed to people that like just try to grow and grow and grow and are working 90 hours a week and miserable. I just don't like work. If I work more than 20 hours a week, I just get ornery. So I don't want to do it. Luckily, I don't really have to at this point.
I think some people, a couple of things happen too. That like some people go into like their first kind of like offer successful, and then they kind of think they're building a business when they're not, right? And so then they feel like they have to hire a bunch of people because that's what they're supposed to do because they're building the business. And the reality is it's like
just build an offer.
Yeah, they have an offer. And frankly, building offers is much more profitable than building a business most of the time, right? Of course, there are exceptions to that, and there's a longevity factor and things of that nature. But it's like, you know, you have to really be clear. They're very different. If you want to build a real business, like you look at even Mark and Jeff with Natural Health Sherpa, and they spoke at the event.
Oh my God,
right? They're like, they're giving up a ton of money today for money tomorrow. And that's totally awesome and cool, and they're brilliant. But that's a very different approach than like if you want $1 today.
But it's also like, what do you want out of your life, right? Like I like money, but money isn't what gets me out of bed in the morning. As long as I've got enough to live the lifestyle I've got now, which is nice, but not extravagant in any way, then I'm pretty, if I could just extend what I have now for the next 50 years, 40 years, I'd be a very happy person. I don't really personally have that. Like I had a friend recently, I was talking to a younger guy in our business doing really, really well. And he's like, I want to be a billionaire. I'm like, why? He's like, what do you mean why? I'm like, why do you want to be a billionaire? He's like, because I want to be a billionaire. I'm like, you need to think about this before you commit your life to going down this path, because it will not make you happy to be a billionaire unless you really know why you're doing it and what you're going to get out of it. I think when you're in your 20s, the money matters more. The numbers matter more when you're in your 20s, and the like competition and the idea of like, hey, I make all these zeros. That means that I mean something in some way.
Well, like if I sold a company for like $1 billion, right? And then I just have that cash, cool. That billionaire level, sure. But like most billionaires you look at are like, they're working all the time. They're like, their relationships are terrible. Like they don't know their kids. Like they're divorced. Like they're just like that level, like being a billionaire seems pretty awful in a lot of like, plus you have so many things going on at that point that, you're constantly on calls. Like you have all these people in your life. Like,
who wants that target on their head, right? Like even guys I know who go up on Facebook, I know that part of our business is you have to brag about how much money you make. I'm personally very uncomfortable with it, but it's part of the business. But like, if you're going around driving a Ferrari, doing this, doing that, especially now when the world is as fucked as it is, and so many millions and billions of people are barely making enough money to get by, you're putting a huge target on your head. As like, I would hate the idea of like being world famous and known to be extremely rich. Sounds like the worst thing in the world to me. I like being able to go to the supermarket.
The one thing that's, especially on the super famous side, I mean, there's something interesting about that. Cause like the one nice thing about being really famous is like people will just pay you, give you more money because you're famous and rich, right? So going back to like the president thing, it's like once you're the president, people will pay you $1 million to come speak. And even people who are, famous in their like Tim Ferriss can get paid whatever he gets paid, like $50,000, so like $100,000 to go speak at some event. And it's nice to have that additional optionality in your life, kind of. But like the downside to it is, as you said, you do have a huge target. But I get it from like the fact that like if there's ways that as a lazy, I love to work. I actually do love to work, which is like I enjoy working. I'm happy about that. Hours a week. Yeah. But like, I don't know. It's just
Did you read that? Did you read that article that Tim wrote about the downsides of being famous?
Oh no.
It was really interesting. He wrote it probably, I would say about a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. And he just detailed all these things that changed in his life from being famous.
Here it is. Reasons not to become famous.
I mean, like certain things that you'd never think of, like he's got like fucking stalkers and he had to have like full-time security and like crazy people like showing up at his house, and like Tim isn't that famous. Like,
well, dude, even the Michael Fiore stuff. I had a stalker a couple of years ago. I had this woman who flew from Atlanta to Seattle who had this completely convinced herself that her and Michael Fiore had a relationship and that I had invited her to fly to Seattle, and she showed up and was like trying to figure out where I lived. And like that's from, I mean, I haven't done any real Michael Fiore stuff in any serious way in like 6-7 years at this point, but even just that little bit was enough to get the crazies to come out of the woodwork a little bit. Plus, I still get death threats through as that character, which is always kind of
fun.
It's fucked up.
Dan,
Money is better than fame.
would you be famous, Dan? Or are you afraid of fame? Or are you like whatever about it? I feel like you just so go with the flow so much. You know, what are your feelings about fame?
I just don't really want it.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing that I would want. It's like Chris was saying, like I like being able to leave my house and go to the grocery store and just be on my own and not have to.
I like being famous at events and then going home. Right.
Yeah.
Like, it's nice to like go to TNC or go to Copy Accelerator and have people, you know, who know what I've done and who I am be respectful or whatever. And to have beautiful women looking at you with that special look in their eye because you're famous, and then to go the fuck home and be a regular person again.
You know what's funny too and kind of humbling about that is like it happens in every industry. Like for us, but it's our industry. But I remember, you know, Laura and I were on like we were broken up or whatever, and I was in Vegas and I went out and I was like playing. I had a dinner and I played craps like by myself. This is like, you know, several years back, obviously. And there was a girl who's there and I was like talking to her and we sort of like just started walking around the casino and like went to play blackjack. And she was there for like an insurance like convention or something.
Yep.
But then I remember like talked to her and then it was like, oh, that's like so-and-so. And it was like the VP of like the regional VP of like, you know, their insurance division or something. And like this guy was at the bar with like a drink and all these people like are around him. And like, then like one of her coworker comes up and like, they're all like, looking at him and talking about him. And it's like, but it's so funny, right? Because if someone who's outside that world, you're like, I don't give a fuck. Like, what do I care about this like insurance VP? But I'm sure it's like the same thing, like, right, with any industry, including ours. But it's just funny when it's your industry, you're like, well, yeah, but I mean, I do a lot of pretty cool shit. But then it's like, you know, you like any other industry, they're like, yeah, they feel the same way.
Well, I got to say, like my friends at home in Seattle, I hang out with a lot of Burning Man related people, and I have very few entrepreneurial friends in Seattle, and none of my everyday friends are people from our business whatsoever. They just know me as the crazy guy with the mustache and whatever else. But slowly, some of them from like Facebook and stuff kind of went down the rabbit hole and started to like figure out that in this very small world, I'm a big deal. And they learned about the Michael Fiore stuff. And they're just like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Why are people treating it? They'll see on Facebook and they're like, Chris, why are these people trying to give you a blowjob on Facebook? I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Or they like hear my YouTube ads and they're like, why is your voice coming out of the computer? Here's a question for you. So my wife, Angie, is a fantastic copywriter. Laura, of course, is also in the business. One thing that is tough for Angie occasionally is she came to meet with me to like the ClickBank event over the summer in Mexico. And we were talking afterwards and she was saying like, you know, it's really fucking hard and weird being the person next to the person being asked for their autograph all the time. Right? It's a really kind of fucked up thing when you're just kind of being an accessory to that person. And I wonder about like, since, you know, Laura was kind of your mentor or like whatever it was at first, how have you kind of navigated that? Has it been an interesting thing to get through? Has it been hard? I think it's definitely easier for women than for men to be not as big of a deal one, but still it can be a dangerous thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, but she had so many relationships like in the space before me, right? Obviously, because she was already in the space. So that kind of helps because like, even if she goes to an event, she's seeing people that she knew before she'd ever met me even. And
yeah.
So she retains some of her identity that way. And then, yeah, she just has done a really good job with it. And she is, you know, she's a brilliant marketer. Now she has her skincare company, which is doing pretty well. And
that's right.
So it hasn't been a really big thing. I'm also not as famous as you are though. And not just like because of Michael Fiore, but like I've really only stepped into the spotlight in the last like year and a half since I started doing Copy Accelerator with Justin. Before that, I had good relationships. So I think I'm definitely better known. I'm definitely better known now than I was, you know, even more recently. So I do get like recognized at events or even random thing. It has happened. Like we went to a dance lesson in Vegas and the guy there was like, oh, you're Stefan Georgi. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, this is the weirdest thing. We're here to do like salsa dancing. And you know, it turned out he had a mutual friend but yeah, so it hasn't been a huge issue. But it is weird. I do understand, especially for you guys. I can see that being a pretty weird dynamic.
I find it really weird and interesting that I'm still as well known in our business as I am, considering I was really off the radar for like 5 or 6 years or something like that. It's really fascinating to me. I wonder how much of it is that I'm good at what I do and how much of it is that I'm a fucking weirdo, right? I'm sure that at least part of it is that. Yeah.
Perfect combo.
Yeah, it works. You know, having a big personality can be very profitable. So.
It's funny. Just like for all of you guys, it's funny. I'm thinking about my dynamic with all of you guys as far as before I knew you. So like Chris, like, you know, I had studied and I think it's part of the reason why Chris is, yeah, you're a weirdo, but also your copy is just so fucking good. Your offers are so good that like people just remember it. Right. Mm-hmm. I remember when I was kind of like scared of you because you seemed eccentric, and it was like, oh no, what if, he doesn't, but for me for a long time, it was just like, what if people don't like me? Right. Which is a very human thing in general. And that's kind of like with you, how I remember feeling. And if I'd see you like at an event before I had ever met you, with like Justin, he would run this like, copy mastermind the day before traffic and conversion. And like, I wouldn't get invited, and I could have just asked like, hey, I want to go. But instead I'd be like, really like, what? I wasn't invited. Like, what the hell? And I'd have like an ego thing about it. And this was like the first time or two it happened, and then I got over it. But of course, and then with Dan, it was really like just this guy who was like writing all this killer, like mostly financial stuff at the time. And people kept bringing it up to me, and that Dan, I didn't like know as much from like events, but like I just kept hearing about Dan. But then I looked at his copy and was like, oh shit, that's really good. And then we only met Dan like a month or two ago, whatever.
In Vegas, yeah.
Yeah, in Vegas.
Like months ago or years ago by now, but
yeah. But it is funny thinking about that and that dynamic. Yeah, that dynamic of how like, and that's like one thing I've learned as I've gotten older too, right? Is like nobody. Like 99% of people aren't assholes, and if they're an asshole, like that's a them problem, not a you problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Also, though, maybe it's good I didn't go to you, Chris, when you were in the height of your narcissism / off your meds, because maybe you would have been a total asshole and just scarred me for life.
I would have been. I would have been very jealous of you, honestly, at that point, because my self-esteem was really. If I had met you, like honestly, even when I met Justin, basically, like I'll tell you right out, I was kind of intimidated to meet you because I had been kicked so firmly in the balls by life and had not really been able to work or put out an offer that really kicked ass in a while. And then I see you and Justin, who are, younger than me, and all, like, I didn't know you at all. And then all of a sudden you guys are like big deal copywriters. I was pretty intimidated. It was pretty scary at first. So it's like, it goes, and I've had that same experience with people like David Deutsch, right? He was like, he had seen my stuff before. And I'm like, you're David fucking Deutsch and you're calling me for advice about something? Like it blows your mind. But most people, Dunning-Kruger is a thing. None of us actually think we're as big of a deal or as well known as we are, unless we're profound narcissists who need that to fuel ourselves.
Yeah. I think it's refreshing every time I've met somebody, you guys included, who have been like, fuck, like that guy's a big deal. And then you just discover they're all human beings and we're all kind of like wired relatively similarly. So maybe this goes back to the thing about me not being very cynic about people, but usually like immediately I'm pretty much just like, oh, like I really like that person.
I just think it's really important to be friendly and to realize that people are just people. And I always make a point at events and such, because I don't know if you get this yet, but you get this weird thing where you're hanging out talking to people and people stand like 3 feet away from you and their body language is kind of like this and they don't say anything. And they're just kind of waiting and watching the conversation. I always try to make a point like, hey, how are you? Nice to meet you. And bring them in some way because they won't do it themselves. But I remember being that guy too. I remember like, seeing Jeff Walker at an event before I got to know him and being like, oh my fucking God. Or being in an elevator with Frank Kern and like not knowing what to say because it was Frank fucking Kern.
It's like you get to feel like the hot girl in high school at the event.
Yeah, for a little while you get to.
It's like you're running the event or you're speaking at it, and then like exactly like I had that happen at a couple events, or at one back in January. Like they had a little like cocktail party that I spoke at, and or I spoke at the event, then they had a cocktail party at night. And I'm like out there like same thing, like 6 or 7 people just standing like 3 feet away from me, scared to say hi. But I know that feeling too. So now, but even me as like an introvert, now I know like that's what they want. So I'll just like go over and say hi to them so that they don't have to get out the balls to actually do it.
It's interesting that as humans, if we see somebody, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's all I had to say.
I just think it's interesting that as human beings, if we see somebody on stage, I don't know where, I mean, I'm sure it has an evolutionary basis about alpha male, alpha female, whatever it is, but we see somebody on stage or we see them on YouTube or whatever else, and they become something different to us, right? They become elevated in this powerful way, even if there's some random fucking asshole putting up videos on Facebook, right? Like it's really fascinating to me how we, for whatever reason, our brains do that, where we elevate people to these amazing places and we feel like we're not good enough to even talk to them, or we're going to be bothering them when we say hi or something, when nothing could be further from the truth.
Like Dan, back to Dan's optimism and kind of like, one thing I would do, it stopped like a couple years ago, but like if I didn't know somebody who was successful, I think part of like jealousy and then as like a self-preservation mechanism, I would kind of like feel like I didn't like that person. And I'd sort of be like guarded. But what I found is like every time that happened and I ended up actually meeting and spending time with the person, almost every single time, like just like Dan, I'd be like, oh wow, I really like this person and they're cool. And so I realized like, well, if this is happening like every single time, why don't I just really try to like stop like feeling, you know, this way? Why don't I just assume that I'm going to like this person if I actually get to know them, and stop like judging them and making these weird preconceptions about them, and just actually talk to them. That helped a lot. It's weird that it's not weird, but it's weird now to think back that I would do that, because I don't really do it today. I bet I would. I bet if I met someone, like if I was hanging out with a group of people and like somebody super famous, I don't know. Tom Cruise is a bad example because maybe he is really weird, but like somebody who's really famous, right? And I was like hanging out and like everyone's attention was on them. I bet I probably would still have that instinct to want to like kind of knock them down in my eyes, you know,
oh, man.
Until I got to know them at least. So it's kind of,
I didn't do that, but I acted like a moron when I met Ed O'Neill from Married with Children years ago, because I loved that show so much when I was growing up. My dad died a long time ago, but me and my dad used to watch it. And I was in LA for something, going to Larry Benet's event, and Ed O'Neill was outside the hotel, like talking to somebody. I was like, hey, how are you? Nice to meet you. Big fan. And then I just ran away. And he's like, what the fuck? I'm like, that was a dick move. I shouldn't have done that. The guy was probably like talking to his daughter or something. But yeah, I feel like an asshole.
I had on that same note. So like, man, this was probably 4 or 5 weeks ago. Probably about 2 months ago in Austin. One of my buddies invited me to this house party, and I walk in and Vinny Chase from Entourage is there, and I was like, kind of like starstruck. Cause like when I was in college, I probably watched Entourage like every fucking day.
Oh sure.
But I was like shocked. He was like 4 inches shorter than me. And I just couldn't get over it the whole time. I'm like, oh my God, dude. Like, I was like, he just looks like such a badass on the fucking screen on the TV. And I'm like, This dude is like 4 inches shorter than me. It's shocking.
He's the height you used to be before the massive growth spurt.
Dude, I was like 5'1" when I graduated high school.
That's insane. Freaking insane. That's crazy. Good for you. You should bottle that stuff and sell it.
Yeah, that's your offer right there.
That would be the best selling offer online.
How to be taller? Yeah, it would suck. I really like being 6'1". It's great. It's the perfect height. You know. I
could use another inch. 5'11", but I was.
Oh, you could use 2 more inches.
5'9". I think I feel down here.
6'1" is the perfect height. It is. And 6'1" is Captain America height. That's the height you want to be. Otherwise, you end up being like the tall guy in the group, and that gets too much. But 6'1", you're like leader size, basically. You can be the guy in the front.
That's a good size. My buddy Alec, who is one of the guys who I talk copy, we were hanging out one time. We're all like talking. Alec is 6'5", and in a dead serious sentence, he's like, if I was 6'6", I feel like my life would have been so much different. And we're all just like looking at him. I was like, every dude who's like 5'5" just wants to fucking slit your throat right now.
So
more height, more problems. Yeah.
I was thinking, guys, I know we said we're gonna do an hour and a half, and we're coming up on that, and I know we have some stuff to get to, but so I mean, I guess like this, you know, I guess it's pretty informal, which is how I want it to be. I'm gonna, like I said, I'll put it on YouTube. I'll get you guys links you can share with other people, and then we can try and do like maybe an interactive one with people in the next week or two, which I think would be really fun. But is there anything that, you know, you guys want to like cover before we kind of end this or anything? Hey, you know, great life wisdom to impart.
No, I thought that was cool.
Yeah, that's it too. You know, it's crazy times. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens the next couple of years, not just in our world, but in our industry, and how people are going to react. I think, I don't know, save your money, stay humble. That's the only chance you've got.
That's good advice.
I think just being able to learn from what we're going through right now. I mean, maybe not even in a professional context, right? But just being able to learn more about yourself emotionally, financially, spiritually, whatever it may be. Like, I've really kind of tried to tap into a lot of that over the last few weeks and just find all the silver linings that I can. And in some ways it feels weird. Like, I think I'm going to, 10 years from now, there's going to be a slight bit of nostalgia about this time period.
It's a valuable experience. I think it makes us all slow down. People are spending more time with things that matter. I can walk, you know, half a mile from my house and see mountains that are miles and miles away that we could never see from the city before because of the pollution.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, there's always ups and downs to everything, right? There's always silver linings. There's always horrible things. You get to kind of choose what this experience is for you, assuming that you can keep the lights on and pay your bills.
Yeah, 100%. I know, I actually feel like I have so many more things we could talk about. So we'll definitely do another one of these. I have another call to get to, which just sucks. I mean, I could cancel, but
next time we should drink a bunch of bourbon while we're doing it.
I mean, a very different conversation. Like we veered into blowjobs and cock references like a little bit.
Sober.
Half a bottle, bourbon, and it'd be a little different.
I could just see Dan after like drinking, just talking about the gold standard and how that messed up you're going off of it.
Yeah, for me it would be, because it's still morning here, I'd be drinking Baileys in my coffee.
Awesome. Well, this was great, guys. It was really fun.
Good idea, Stefan.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Awesome, guys. Yeah. Well, let's all keep in touch for sure.
Cool.
See you guys.
All right. Bye, guys.